What's going on, everyone? I'm just a simple Canadian here to react to a simple American reacting to a simple video about Canada's government being explained. Now, this is definitely something we covered in school, but we didn't cover it that well, and since then, we really haven't touched on it again. So this will be interesting for both Tyler Bucket, the amazing and illustrious Tyler Bucket, and myself to explore Canada's government system. Let's see if I can add a little bit of context and afterthought to his wonderful learning exploration. Here we go.
What's going on, everyone? I'm just a simple American man here to react and learn about the Canadian government system. Now, just yesterday in a video I did, I learned about a brief history of Canada that I had never known before, which I was shocked to think about how most Americans really do not know the history of Canada and 90% of the other world of other nations on Earth. Anyway, I digress. That's a whole other rant. But anyway, after learning about the history of Canada, I thought I could learn about the Canadian government system, because that is another thing where we have a very basic understanding of it in America. We know it's a democracy, so we all go, woohoo, it's like us, woohoo, it's like America. But obviously, there's much, much more nuance to it than that. You can have democracies that have their own little political systems, political parties, different houses and assemblies of people debating, all sorts of things. So,
I think it's amazing that as Canadians, we probably know more about the American political system than we do our own. I mean, we've all watched the Schoolhouse Rock videos, right? About how a bill gets made. That's not Canadian. We all know about the two-party system. That's not Canadian. We all know about the American elections that go on for years. And that's not Canadian systems. Let's get into it.
I thought, why not learn about the Canadian government system? See what it's about. So, with that being said, let's watch it.
There are three main parts in Parliament.
Well, just off the bat, in the U.S. government, we certainly have a House of Representatives, which is like a House of Commons, maybe. We have a Senate, which is made up of 100 members, and this term sovereign, I'm not sure what that is actually referring to.
Honestly, I can't remember. So, House of Commons, that is actually available on TV and on the internet whenever they meet in the House of Parliament, which is also the House of Commons, where all of the elected representatives go to. That's where they have the big debates, and oh boy, those can be some fun debates to watch, where you get a lot of like hooting and hollering as people from either side of the aisle are attacking Prime Minister Trudeau, because let's face it, that's all we want to do.
So I guess let's see.
All right.
A sovereign, king or queen,
Sovereign. Excuse me.
Okay, so in the sovereign, I suppose we're talking about the Queen's representative, now the King's representative. Let's carry on.
King or queen? Canada doesn't have a king.
The King of Canada! Yes, technically, yes.
Or queen? There's no way. I'm living in the Matrix. I am out of touch. If Canada has a king or queen that I don't know about, say it isn't so.
Oh, Tyler, you know about the Queen, and now you know about the King, and I'm glad that you learned that they're kind of our royalty. I mean, they're on the money in the same way that Australia has a king and queen.
Am I that out of touch?
presented in Canada by the Governor General.
Governor General?
Yeah.
Governor General?
Right now, our Governor General is the First Nations Governor General representative of the King, and we love her.
What does that mean? Hold on. Then Governor General,
Yeah.
not Australia.
I'll be the
And
Royal Representative.
Canada. Yeah, look at this. Is the federal, I won't even try to say that word, representative of the Canadian monarch. Currently Queen Elizabeth II. Okay, we're diving into the realm of something that I can't even begin to understand.
Hey, we don't really understand it much either. It's mostly a figurehead position with a few privileges and some authority.
Okay, so on some level, at least in the Canadian monarchy, Canada is still tied to the UK,
We have problems letting go.
which, I mean, I feel dumb for not knowing this, but I know for a fact that no one in America, none of my peers at least, would have any clue about that connection. That's
Oh.
fascinating.
Awesome.
Because Canada and 14 other are part of the Commonwealth realms. Okay, all right.
Yeah, that's what happens when we peacefully secede from the monarchy. We just kind of sign contracts, we make deals. We didn't have that whole war thing that y'all did.
Governor General. Who knew?
Ah, we knew.
Although, that doesn't really sound like a straight up king or queen, although we're talking about Queen Elizabeth II here. That's okay.
And now King Charles the First?
Got it.
The Senate, which consists of senators appointed by the Governor General on the advice of the Prime Minister and serves until age 75.
What? Wait, there's a lot to unpack here. First of all, that term limit, serving until the age of 75? It's not like a set number of years, 4 years, 2 years, and then you're put in again, re-elected?
Well, that really has a lot to do with who the Prime Minister is, and who the Governor General is. So, yeah, the Senate does change around.
Although, to talk about that, this position is not elected. It is appointed by the Governor General, who is, hold on, Governor General. Federal representative of the Canadian monarch.
Love you,
Okay,
Tyler.
so this is not the. We're not talking about Queen Elizabeth II. She's the queen. The Governor General of Canada is Mary Simon. So Mary Simon.
Not currently, I believe. Oh, maybe. But Marie Simon, parce que français. Let me double check. Who is our Governor General right now? Eh oui, c'est Marie Simon. Elle est excellente. Et on lui aime. Oh, let's go back to the video I was watching. Oh, oops. Let's bring it back while you enjoy my cat on her nest, making sure she's clean. Going as quick as I can here. All right. There. Pause and pop out. Okay, let's continue.
Appoints the senators? How many senators are there? This is completely different. I'm sorry if I sound surprised, but this is just a totally different way of doing it than the only way I know of, which is my American way. That's the only thing I'm familiar with. Is it's made of 100 members that are voted and become senators, basically in public elections. So these, in Canada, the senators are actually appointed by the Governor General on the advice of the Prime Minister. Wouldn't that mean whoever the Prime Minister... I am familiar with the term Prime Minister, at least. At least know that. There is a little bit of thought going up in this head.
Awesome.
I'm familiar with the term Prime Minister, somewhat equivalent to the American President, the highest ranking position in the Canadian government, I think.
Yes and no, because we're still led by the monarchy, so the Governor General is the highest ranking position. So our current Senate was chosen by Justin Trudeau, and he was the one who chose them. And then Marie Simon said, yeah, okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but if the Prime Minister gets to select or appoint um, I'm sorry, the Prime Minister gets to give advice to the Governor General on who to appoint, then the makeup of the Senate is highly dependent on who the current Prime Minister is and whoever their political affiliation would be. So
Absolutely.
in the U.S., it's highly accepted that the Senate is almost a 50-50 split of because in the U.S. we have two major political parties, essentially only two, and that's it, which is terrible, by the way. Terrible.
Yeah.
We need more political parties. We need more of a diversity of ideas and debate and points of view to come to converge on the best possible outcome for the good of humanity. But
Yeah, like, we're all aware of the Democrats and the Republicans, the blue team and the red team, the left and the right. And, yeah, that doesn't leave a lot of middle ground for the moderates.
I digress. Um, it's our Senate is made up of a variety of political, you know, politicians. Let's say a variety of politicians of differing viewpoints, and I would wonder if, since the Prime Minister gets to have a lot of say in this, if the Senate in Canada is mostly comprised of one political party. Would that make sense? Maybe I'm totally off here. I don't know.
Ish. It's mostly who Trudeau thinks would be the best representative for the job. It's a networking thing.
The House of Commons, a representative chamber,
That's the fun one.
made up of members of Parliament elected by the people, traditionally every 4 years.
Okay, this is much more what I'm familiar with. Some kind of assembly, a chamber made of lots of members. This is just like the United States House of Representatives,
Yes.
essentially, which is made up of hundreds of members. I don't know how many members are in the Canadian House of Commons. But these representatives are elected by the people, which is great. Direct representatives of, I imagine, different geographic locations that they're from, and the people there directly elect them and represent them in Parliament.
That's the idea. And as you know, it doesn't always work out that way.
Something like that. That's very much how it's done in the House of Representatives and Senate here. So this I'm familiar with.
Both the Senate and House of Commons consider and review bills. No bill can become a law until it has approval from both of these chambers and received royal assent.
Okay. This is another similarity between the United States government and Canadian government, which I think is great. This, not that our government is perfect and great. This point here is great. Having a system where, you know, bills and laws have to pass through multiple rounds of scrutiny. They have to pass through multiple chambers of debate and, you know, can be amended and compromised. So hopefully it best represents, you know, what is best for the people.
Well, hopefully it is right. And much like the American system, it has its flaws. Yes, it should be what's best for the people, as the people should speak with their members of parliament, and the parliament should work together to mold the bills. But we have to remember that the members of parliament are all individuals who are often looking out for themselves.
Hopefully. And that is certainly what happens in America with a lot of our bills and processes, although some really don't. I'm not exactly sure how some of that works, but some things can be passed without this kind of process. But most of the time, this is how it works, and we call it a system of checks and balances in America. I don't know if that terminology is used in Canada, but it basically ensures that there are multiple chances for a bill or law to be looked at and struck down before it is ultimately passed and written into law, which is kind of a big deal. So it has to be scrutinized.
Which is great.
Sorry. Kat wants something. She's just telling me where she's going. It's okay. That's Janie Cat right there. But yes, system of checks and balances. That is a term that we use. It's not really an official term. It's a borrowed term because y'all are neighbors and we like our neighbors. Janie, what's up? Oh, you're on a diet. You get fed later. You gotta wait for Blue Moon. It's okay. It's okay. Blue Moon being the alarm sound I have when it's her time to get food and get shot.
Granted by the Governor General on behalf of the Sovereign.
Okay, and this is like equivalent to when the US president kind of signs off on the bill or law at the very end of the process. It's almost a formality. It'd be very unusual for something to get through both the Senate and the House and be struck down by a single person, the president, or in this case, the governor general. I don't know if that has a precedent or not. If it's typical, if it is just a formality in Canada, very interesting to think about though, but very similar in which at the end of the day, the final high-ranking official has to legally sign it to pass into law.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, so we have Parliament, which is the Sovereign, Senate, House of Commons. And then outside of that, we have the Prime Minister and Cabinet, which I've heard of, and I pretty much view as like our president and his cabinet. He chooses associates and advisors to be around him that he basically gets to choose and appoint as his cabinet members. Something like that. Probably similar.
Yeah. Pretty much.
After the election, the leader of the political party with the most seats in the House of Commons is invited by the Governor General to form the government.
Oh, okay. So this is different. The political party that holds the most seats in the House of Commons is essentially their leader gets to become prime minister?
Yeah, so it's a lot like the Democratic National Convention and the Republican National Convention, how they have their Democratic leader and their Republican leader. You know, very similar. Only we have multiple parties, so we can have a majority or a minority government depending on whether. Okay, so like let's say 40% of our country votes red, and then 30% votes blue, and then 30% votes green and orange and the other colors. Then the 40% forms the government. They get to choose the prime minister, but they are in the minority because 60% of the House is made up of other parties. And that's usually a good way to get some balance in that unless it's a majority government, they don't get to do what they want.
That's interesting. That's that's just a different way of doing the same democratic process that we do in America.
And we do a very similar way to Germany, except for their whole chancellor thing.
Just a different way of doing it. Here we directly elect the president, and other positions in the government can be filled basically on a person-by-person basis by direct population vote. Although we do have kind of a convoluted electoral college thing where each of the states is worth a certain number of points, and the points get assigned based on how many people vote for the president, and it's very convoluted. I'm not going to get into it, but essentially, hopefully, the will of the people's vote ends up choosing the president. That's the idea. But in this case, the people are voting on the members of the House of Commons, and that is pretty much the vote for the prime minister, voting on the House of Commons. And what party ends up getting the most members in the House of Commons? That is essentially the vote for the prime minister. Wow, that's interesting.
So, when we've got the different heads of parties debating against each other, they are pulling for their team, and then we choose who we like the sounds of. Like, back in 2015, I think it was, when we voted Trudeau in for the first time. It's because we wanted weed to be legal.
But at the end of the day, it achieves getting, the party that was voted for the most, their leader, if you will, takes the rank of prime minister. So it achieves the same effect. Okay, very
And we legalized it.
interesting.
The party with the most seats in the House of Commons is invited by the Governor-General to form the government. The
Okay.
leader of this party becomes the Prime Minister of Canada.
Yeah. Wow. There's a lot of ways to achieve basically the same result, isn't there? That's so interesting.
The Prime Minister also chooses the ministers of the Crown, mostly from members of the House of Commons. These cabinet ministers are responsible for running the federal government departments, and collectively they are called the Cabinet.
Earlier, when I was talking about the Senate, I was confusing it with the Cabinet.
Yes, okay. The cabinet. That ministers of the crown kind of threw me off, but I'm assuming that's kind of a formal title. The prime minister then chooses his cabinet members. Yeah, the prime minister has a lot of responsibility because if I'm remembering correctly, he has a lot of say in the makeup of the Senate, and he's the leader of the current reigning political party, and he chooses all the cabinet members.
And he's our international representative.
So the prime minister, kind of a big deal. Kind of a big deal.
Along with the Prime Minister, the Cabinet makes important decisions about how the country is governed, which includes budgeting and proposition of new laws.
Okay.
Their decisions can be questioned by any of the members in the House of Commons.
Okay, that's great. That's great. I love to hear that, The more we can introduce processes like that where you kind of come full circle, where the prime minister and his cabinet are saying, oh, let's invoke this law, this idea, and then it can go down to that, back to the House of Commons, where those members have a chance. Even if they're not in the reigning political party, they have a chance to voice their opinion, to give a different point of view, even if it's not correct, or maybe it is correct. Just hearing all the multiple points of view, questioning things, it's all very important. It's absolutely fantastic to...
It's extremely entertaining when they have disagreements. We often see it on the news where, let's say, blue team is like, brah, 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 red boss, bad. And then the red team is like, well, we blah, 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 good. So you be quiet. And then there's a rah, rah, rah. And the banging of the gavel. Order, order. It's great TV.
hear that processes like this exist in the Canadian government at a lot of different levels. That's great.
The opposite party with the most members in the House of Commons is the official opposition, or
Okay.
Her Majesty's Loyal Opposition.
Oh, Her Majesty's Loyal Opposition. Okay. The losing party even gets an official title here. Okay.
That'd be like the second best loser. The first best loser, the second most winning party. It's usually blue team, red team.
Canada has multiple courts that are suited to handle matters in a variety of areas.
Our blue team is your red team. Your blue team is our red team. We also have green and orange, and a few others.
Okay.
The Supreme Court of Canada is the country's highest court and is the court of final appeals in Canada's justice system.
Absolutely the same as in the United States. Absolutely the same. We have a Supreme Court. It is the final and highest ranking court. Essentially what they say goes. So, absolutely the same.
The Federal Court of Canada deals with matters concerning the federal government.
Oh,
Other provincial courts exist in each province to handle lesser offenses.
right.
Virtual Citizenship Resource Center, helping you for...
Okay. I don't need the Citizenship Resource Center just yet. Okay, maybe one day. But wow.
Oh, we hope so.
Fascinating. That was
Great.
really interesting. And very succinct, very to the point. I liked this video. Who was this? Christine Penrose. That was a good video.
Good job.
Thank you, Christine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fascinating. Very informative. Yeah, it's always so interesting to me when you learn about other governments, how many things work in this world, in this modern day and age. There's so many different ways to achieve similar results, or to go about tackling a certain problem, such as, how to have a democracy or democratic processes, how to represent the will of the people and run a nation, just little things like that.
One important difference between how y'all do it and how we do it would be how the votes count. In America, I understand that your vote does not always get counted, and in Canada, our votes go directly to our local representative, and every vote has weight to it. So we feel like our vote matters more.
But seriously, this was very interesting. I'm very glad I watched this. Understanding how Canadian government works is something I should have known at this point in my life, so I'm happy that I know. And it's not all that dissimilar to the American government, but it just puts extra ideas in my mind, extra points of view, like we could run certain things about how we elect our Senate or House of Representatives, or how things are chosen. It can be done different ways. So it's just like what I was getting at with any hopefully good government that works and is for the people. Diversity of ideas and all that, it's all great stuff. So this was interesting. This was great. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, if you enjoyed this reaction, feel free to give it a like or leave a comment on anything I've said, any of the rambling I've done, feel free. And if you enjoyed this, if you're looking for maybe more reactions like this towards Canadian things, Canadian topics, go ahead and subscribe to the channel for more stuff like this. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.
And I have nothing more to add. Y'all just keep being awesome.
Science, spirit, life. Nerd Pumpkin.